Thank you for coming to the presentation. My name is Katrina Markoff. I founded a chocolate business called Vosges Chocolat and a new one called Wildophilia. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, my origin story of how I got started in the chocolate business 19 years ago now. It's been some time. Essentially, I grew up in Indiana in a Macedonian house, and so cooking was at the center of everything we did socially. Whether it was a funeral or a wedding or a birthday, it was always centered around the feast. And I had this easy bake oven when I was a kid, and my mom was a single mom who worked a lot, and I used to spend a lot of time making cakes for her. And we had a garage sale that I started to love to run when I was like 7 years old. And I would make these cakes and lemonade, and I would sell them. And that was kind of my first taste of entrepreneurialism at the young age. And I loved the idea of how you could make a product, rooted in love, really, and sell it in commerce. And so I got in high school, and I kept making these cakes, and I would bring them into school, into the classroom, mostly probably to get out of class, but the teachers would see these cakes and they started ordering them. And then a little business spawned out of that as well. I started selling these cakes to country clubs and restaurants in Indiana. And then I went on to college, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and I was studying chemistry at Vanderbilt, and I just didn't love my degrees. I got to my second semester of my senior year, and I was like going to these career fairs. You'd have to put on a suit and interview, and I don't think I was doing very well. And I did a little soul searching, and I was talking to kind of a mentor. I guess I wouldn't have said she was a mentor at the time, but a mentor at the time. And she said to me, I want you to read this book, and it was titled Where Your Heart Leads You, Success Will Follow. And it was all about doing these manifestation exercises where you would go into a beautiful natural place and write down the things that you truly love to do. And I did that, and I wrote down horseback riding and cooking. And I decided to circle cooking. And I told my mom, you know what, I don't think I can do anything with these degrees. I really need to go to culinary school. And she thought, oh my gosh, this was 20 years ago. So she was like, what are you going to do? In food, there was no celebrity chef at the time. It was more of a vocational thing to go to culinary school. You didn't do that after college. But I loved it, and she was a big proponent of really following your passions, and if you really did something you were passionate about, you'd put a lot of time and effort into it. So 3 days after Vandy, I moved to Paris, and I went to the Cordon Bleu Culinary School, and I fell in love with Paris, and I was eating at these amazing Michelin restaurants, and I had the lucky day when a chef from India had a restaurant in Paris. So he came in to do a demonstration, and he said, in India, when we eat food, we really think about the last course being a positive influence on your digestion. So in India, we put silver leaf on desserts, and silver is an aid in digestion. And that was the moment that this epiphany occurred to really look at how other cultures see food, and I really wanted to learn the stories behind all of that. So I got the opportunity to move to Spain. I went to work at this restaurant called El Bulli, which was the first to do molecular gastronomy in the way that the world knows it now, and has influenced probably globally the world in such a big way. And he was so kind, and he would share, some coffee with me at times, and he said, what do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go next? And I said, well, I should go work in Michelin 3-star restaurants because, that's like the graduate school of the Harvard of, the culinary world. And he said, oh, that would be such a waste of your time. And I said, how so? He said, because you have a good foundation and a base. Use your imagination and your palate and go travel the world. And those were strong words to me to hear that, in a way that he had confidence that I was smart just the way I was at the age of 22. And he said, don't get on the grind wheel of the Michelin 3-star restaurants, because these kids get in there and they just stage, and then they never kind of think freely or creatively. So I ended up buying a ticket around the world going east. You can use it for 2 years. You can go east or west, and you can't go back, but you can go one direction. And I basically spent the next 9 months traveling throughout Southeast Asia and Australia and a little bit in China. And I just got immersed in ingredients that I had never seen before, and the way cultures use it, and also the proximity people were to things that they grew. A lot of people would have a kaffir lime tree in their house, and that's how they got the lime leaves. You know, they would grow things on their windowsills that they would eat, or they would have small plots of, you know, a garden in the back, and it was so much closer than I really had experienced in Indiana. And those stories and that discovery and those people and the architecture around it, and that really represented culture to me, and I just fell in love with it. So I got back to the United States, and I realized while I was working in these restaurants in Southeast Asia and in Europe that I really wasn't a very good chef. Like I wasn't a very orderly person. I was very non-linear, and in a kitchen you have to be extremely tidy, and I think a little bit type A, and it goes from A to C. You know, there's an order of things. And I was messy. So I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I'm going to just be a failure, and I'm going to have to tell my mom that I'm not going to be a chef. But I knew I wasn't going to be a chef. So, but I also knew something else was kind of calling me, and I have a really strong sense of intuition and what, you know, your spiritual self has to say to you, and you know, whatever you want to call that, gut, intuition, spiritual self. I was very much convinced that there was a voice inside of me telling me to continue on, and you'll figure it out. So I moved to Dallas, Texas, and my uncle had just started a mail order company, and he said, since you're trying to figure out what you want to do, why don't you come down here and help me with this startup, and you'll learn a lot about how to bring product into the market. I need you to go buy product at the mart. I need you to write the stories about it in the catalog, write the copy, work with the photographer to do the photo styling. I need you to think about how a consumer wants to buy furniture online. I need you to help me ship the product. It was just this amazing immersion into small business. And I was there for a few months, and he said, let's work on planning the fourth quarter, because in the fourth quarter, people buy a lot of food. So what do we have to sell them that works in the fourth quarter? And so I started researching, and of course, desserts are really popular, and chocolate's huge, again, 20 years ago. And I went to research all the chocolate in the market at the time, and it was chocolate filled with preservatives, artificial. There was no story. If there was a story, it was the World War II grandma story recipe. There just wasn't anything that I would want to eat. Raspberry creams, you know, it just, you didn't know what you were going to get unless you maybe found some kind of a mapping, but it wasn't an experience. And so I went home to my kitchen in Dallas, and I had all these spices and all these beautiful things from my travels that I had collected. And in particular, I had this necklace from the Nagaland tribes in India. And I just loved the energy of this necklace. And for some reason, I went into my kitchen and I decided to make a curry coconut milk chocolate truffle, and then I needed to pay homage to the Naga people for this beautiful necklace. And that was really the moment that Vosges was born, this concept of travel the world through chocolate. That night, I did 22 different chocolate recipes, all inspired by things from my travels or people I'd met, or a painter I admired, and they were all named, whether it was Gaudi or Budapest or Black Pearl for wasabi from Japan. But it was really the idea of chocolate being a medium for storytelling about things that I fell in love with on my travels. And it really resonated with me personally because it was so real, it was so authentic, and it was incredibly disruptive in the marketplace. There was no chocolate with curry, wasabi, olive oil, and paprika. It didn't exist. People were afraid of the idea. And I went into my office that next day and brought in all these chocolates. And Dallas 20 years ago was very much a barbecue town, and we ate a lot of Dickey's barbecue for lunch, and people were not, as, ethnically diverse in their food choices. So when I was bringing in curry chocolates, they were like, no way, But then I convinced them to try it, and it was this amazing opening of the mind experience that I saw on this person's face, where she was like, I don't really know Indian anything, and I don't think it smells good, and I don't want it. And then I'm like, just try it. It's curry. It's made with cardamom and turmeric and black pepper and ginger. And she is okay, and she puts it to her mouth, and she's like afraid to put it in her mouth. And then she takes a bite, and her face like totally changes from like disgust and worry to like awe, surprise, and like delight. Like she really she's like, oh my God, I never. And her whole mind opened. And I'm like, try this one. It's wasabi from Japan. Try this one. It's Chinese star anise. And it just went on. And then I could see that this chocolate had power. It had the ability to connect with people in an emotional way and get their minds open to new ideas. And then I got really thinking, what can I do with this powerful chocolate and to this storytelling? And so I said, I'm going to bring peace to the world through chocolate. Oh, how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to share stories about other cultures, one chocolate at a time. And then it just evolved and evolved. I decided to move to Chicago because Dallas was not the right place to launch this brand. And I got an apartment. I started making the chocolates in my apartment, shipping it out of the apartment, just doing everything out of the apartment, and bootstrapped it. And slowly but surely, it grew, and the business was all bank debt for the first really 18 years because, we just grew slowly and we got a lot of press. So the media was such a huge help to getting the word out about the brand. And we had two channels. It was really personal consumption, which was the chocolate bars. At the time, there weren't chocolate bars that you would, other than what you'd buy at a 7-Eleven, there weren't high-end chocolate bars. So it was just a completely open marketplace. And I think actually growing slower at that time maybe was good because the market, kind of needed to kind of be a little slower for people to be open to trying these interesting ingredients with chocolate. But it was two lines. It was really the truffles and the bars. And the truffles are really gift. So it was something people wouldn't usually eat them for themselves. They would give them as gifts. And they represented themselves, but they were gifts. And then the bars were something you would eat as an everyday personal consumption. So now that the business has evolved, I've actually started a new brand, which is some of these products that we've been passing out here today. So this brand is called Wild Ophelia. And the positioning difference between Vosges and Wild Ophelia is that Vosges is a super premium, global, very, very luxurious and soulful brand. But we were having stores like Target and Walmart and bigger box stores saying, hey, we know there's a movement happening in chocolate. How can we sell Vosges there? And I said, no way. It's just no. But then I got to thinking, and I was thinking there was actually a story that really wasn't being told, and it was this story of this, feminine, spirited, entrepreneurial food brand. And I don't know if you ever really think about brands being gender specific, but most people in the chocolate business are men, and that's interesting. And actually chefs too. It's so interesting because you think of the kitchen and being maternal and the mom cooking. And I felt like we needed to start a story with consumers with this Wild Ophelia brand that represented the American dream, this idea of entrepreneurship and girl boss power and maverick thinking, which is very American in spirit. And so Ophelia became the muse for this brand. And the cause of this brand became, how do we get more girl food entrepreneurs in America? How do we invest in girl entrepreneurs who want to start in food? And better yet, how do we invest in them in high school or college, young? Now that is a little bit of a needle in a haystack, because you don't think about a lot of people starting companies when they're really that young. But, it was my own personal stories that I had this company in high school. We only sold a few $1,000s, but I learned a lot about just how to be scrappy and figure stuff out. And I thought, if I could help girls go from selling the Girl Scout cookies to actually making a product and getting into the food business early enough, I think we can have a really tremendous impact on communities and on girls' leadership in general. And so this product is a fairly accessible price point. Those peanut butter cups are about $1.99. Kroger just picked them up. We're picking our first group of Ophelias this month. So we're going to pick 3 Ophelias. They are going to come in the summer and work for 3 months. In the same way I did rotating through all the departments, they're going to rotate through every department at Vosges. At the end of that, they're going to be given $5,000 to continue their business. The requirement is that they have to have started a business before. They have to have been an entrepreneur. Now, this could be a startup in food, but they have to have experience starting something, like selling something, because I believe that if you can just get to that phase of things, then you've got a pretty big amount of grit for being in high school or college to go further. And then the girls will get mentorship from us, but they agree to give mentorship to the next group of Ophelias. So the idea being that they're at stage 1, let's say, today. They graduate in a year, they're going to be one step up. So their natural cycle of development in the business is going to be great to be mentoring the person just below them, because they're one step above the person who's coming up. So it's really relevant mentorship, and it's very much about, being a community of women in business and helping each other too. And I think that's a big shift from maybe how it was a while back, but I think that is very relevant of how it is today. And so that's really what Wild Ophelia is about. The flavor profiles are very Americana, peanut butter and banana, salt from Maine. We're doing a beef jerky chocolate bar, barbecue potato chip. We're working on, we're launched a new line called Cold Brew Chocolate Coffee Bites. They're little cold brew coffee and chocolate bites, 4 in a pack. They're really good. Yeah, so they're, you'll start seeing them in your different Whole Foods and Gelson's and Fresh Market and Kroger, and so that's cool. But really, this is a second brand, and it's interesting to have like a best strategy of brands. So we have this interesting portfolio, and because innovation is such a huge part of what I do, it's never ending, so I had to start another brand. Maybe I'll start another yet still. But essentially that's my story, and I'd love to have any questions if anyone has them, and I have a ton of chocolate. I have 600 peanut butter cups here, so please feel free to take more with you. And I have some cards on the Wild Ophelia Accelerator Program. I would love it if or if you could encourage any younger girls in high school or college to start something, and connect with us on social. Obviously apply or nominate them if you know any, and that's it. Thank you.